Welcome to Edge Unscripted. Listen along for candid conversations with the Edge marketing team on a variety of subjects in the world of PR and marketing and other topics that have our attention. Let's go off script.
Hello, I'm Amy Juers with Edge Marketing, and this is another episode of Edge Unscripted. I'm here with Joe Woodard from Woodard. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And, this is unscripted, so we can kind of talk about anything and everything. But what I really want to talk about and why I asked you to come on to this podcast is because you are kind of putting a stake in the ground in a way and saying, this is a strange new world. And I think you have some really interesting thoughts and perspectives on that. And that's why I asked you to be on here. So just to kind of kick it off, what, in terms of the world that we're living in today, and it is strange, already strange because, it's Halloween today, so
Yes.
That's kind of fun. But, what are you seeing as the most significant shifts in the accounting profession? And, as we head into 2026, so this is October of 25, how are these changes going to shape, the next year? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there's a lot happening, and it is, Amy, strange, which is why the theme of this year, Scaling New Heights, coming up in June, is Strange New World. Because to navigate this strangeness, you have to settle this new world. You have to know how to build in it. And so to if I were going to categorize my answer into a couple of buckets that we might use as a framework for the conversation, the strange is being created by artificial intelligence. I think that's the one everybody expected me to say. That's introducing strangeness into the profession. There also private equity is creating massive shifts in what we're seeing in the profession. And then you could create a separate category on M&A, mergers and acquisitions, but I'm going to make that sort of a subset and say we've always had mergers and acquisitions, but at the pace that we're having now, as driven by private equity, it's unprecedented in the history of the profession.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot of hype around that, right? And so in the AI hype, especially, like when you think about that, the practical reality of the accounting profession and professionals, like in what way do you see, AI is just kind of everywhere right now, every conference, et cetera, but it's so important. And so in what ways do you see like firms leveraging AI and, what would make them stand out, I guess, and in terms of the competitive market and, what should we be excited about that you see happening with these firms and how they're leveraging AI?
Yeah, so the good news, Amy, we got this, just as recently as at Intuit Connect last week, where Intuit and others like Intuit are leaning into AI inside of their existing software solutions.
Yeah.
So the good news for all of your listeners, you do not have to become an AI programmer. And if you've gone to these conferences, and they're always the geekiest people in the room, Amy, like the people that were doing Zaps before anybody had ever heard of Zapier, and these kind of people that are wired to do coding work, you might think that, you're way behind when they talk about building their own agents or building their own GPTs. And there are people that are out there doing that, the more tech savvy accountants. But if you're listening to this podcast and you've never built a Zap, it's kind of the same thing. You kept up just fine without having to be a Zapier expert. If you've never written Visual Basic Script, but you still use Excel, you've kept up just fine being an Excel user without writing Visual Basic Script. So first thing is we just got to calm the whole thing down and say, you don't have to be writing your own agents or your own GPTs to keep up. And the reason for that is the software developers are doing the heavy lifting for you. Yeah. Intuit just launched Intuit Intelligence. We know that Intuit Assist has been, it was introduced in July, and they're sort of upgrading that whole platform. And now they're making the QuickBooks Live technology, or they're going to, that they've been using internally. They're going to be making that available to the accounting professions, so that this competitive force is now becoming an asset, a toolkit that we can use.
Yeah.
And there are others that have built those kinds of platforms that are democratizing that knowledge through licensing models or user models. But even if you go out, Amy, and get a piece of software, a practice management solution or an accounts payable solution, those people are taking the heavy lift of doing the AI coding, and they're putting it into the solutions that you already use or that you can easily adopt, which means you can be an AI enabled practice just by subscribing to and incorporating software into your practice. It's what you've been doing for decades.
Yeah, I agree. I was at an AI excuse me, intelligence conference the other week, and in my head I'm like, I have to start building agents. And then I was talking to a few people and I'm like, how much does it cost to build an agent? Like, oh, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm like, okay, I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you build it, Mr. Software, Intuit, whatever it is, and then I'll use it. So that's exactly what's happening, which is fantastic, because not many people have hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not only that, but once you build it, if you have to maintain it, that costs more money too. So, and I don't know how to build an agent. Just, I could try, but I just. Anyways,
well, and I think
yeah,
it's not a bad thing to know how to do it, Amy. Just like everything else,
yeah,
it's not a bad thing to know how to build a Zap. I just want to take some of the fear factor down and say strange isn't necessarily fearful, and that's what we want to do, is we want to take the fear factor away during Scaling New Heights, and with this whole story we're telling right now about strange, and say there are lots of ways to settle the strange new world, and you already know how to adopt software, and that will get you there.
Yeah, and I think just not being fearful. There's free tools out there right now, right? And that you can kind of dabble into. And I know I'm constantly going after it and learning it and, expanding my horizon that way. But if you can just handle those tiny little tests, you can more than for sure handle the AI that's going to be baked into the common software platforms that a lot of practitioners use today. So that it is comforting. You just brought me some comfort today.
Yes, trying to take the pressure off.
You always do that, Joe, though. You always know how to do that. So that's awesome.
Well, we've been trying to navigate all of this change now, for decades. And I go back to the QuickBooks DOS days. I know a lot of us do. Just think about what we've been able to navigate, listeners, up to this point. If you go back as far as I do, we went from the floppy disks all the way through the flash drive era into the cloud, and from desktop to cloud. Now we're going cloud to AI. I promise this is an adoptable set of solutions, and as always, the programmers are in their swim lane. Let's stay in ours. Let's just use the technology to perform really good advisory services. Yeah,
absolutely. So now that we have eased ourselves over that worry per se, there's another worry. It's just about, jobs, staffing challenges. That's a concern of many people, many leaders, many companies, firm owners. Like, how do I manage all that? What are the challenges coming up? What's so scary about that? So there's definitely been some innovative approaches or technologies that you just kind of talked about. So how does that affect the business overall? Like, what do you see? What is your vision, or what do you think is going to happen in that regard?
Yeah, so we've got a short-term and a long-term problem here. The short-term problem is, you can't find good talent. And it's hard to keep them when you find them. And there are a lot of drivers of that, the virtualization of the workforce, the ease at which now somebody can spin up their own practice as compared to before, when you had to have physical premise. And now the ease at which I can create a website and a LinkedIn profile and a brand. All the tools are out there for me to spin up a corporation, fraction of the effort, fraction of the risk. With all of the upside, and create a corporate presence right out of the living room in my apartment, if that's where I'm at in my journey financially. So you're seeing all of these people that would have been really good, strong leaders in the company as an employee, going out and hanging their own shingle. And then you're seeing the staffing crisis as it's intersecting the larger firms. They can recruit more aggressively. They provide better benefits. So the people that are suffering most here are the small firms who have less recruitment power. They don't have HR departments. Their benefits are not competitive, and their primary target market for candidates on recruitment are out there spinning up operations that compete with the smaller firms.
Yeah.
So the short-term problem is finding talent. Now, I'm not going to say that the talent shortage isn't affecting the large firms too, but they're more insulated because of their recruitment power straight out of the colleges, but also they're
Sure.
more insulated because they have the ability to spin up operations, brick and mortar, with employees. I was going to say W-2 employees, but it wouldn't apply to India or Philippines, but the equivalent of that, full-time employees on the payroll with all the quality controls, with all the technology. Just locate those in other countries. You know, the top 100 have the power to do that. Everything below the top 100, and you're going to be dealing with some other company. You're going to be dealing with a shared service center of some kind.
Sure.
So what I would tell you, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to grow through this, I think you should solve your short-term problem by finding a really good, reputable outsourcing company. Now, really good and reputable are key because, as you can imagine, supply and demand, those kind of organizations are popping up everywhere, and not all of them are equal, right? So
Yeah.
definitely, whenever you're going out and solving that problem, firms with outsourcing, don't shop for the lowest price. If you shop for the lowest price, then you're going to get the lowest quality. And price alone is not a validator. If you've got somebody that's doing $18 to $20 an hour and somebody that's doing $7 to $8 an hour, likely the one that's closer to $20 an hour is higher quality, but then do your own vetting cycle over and above that. But the
Sure.
encouragement I would have is explore the outsourcing model. And I would say, don't be price sensitive because price and quality go together. Then
Well, yeah.
go ahead. You
Yeah.
go ahead
Go
with
ahead.
that.
Oh, you got another one. You got
No,
another. Go ahead.
I was just going to say
Yeah.
that's the short term. The
Yeah.
long term is embrace this artificial intelligence technology because we don't know exactly how much of the manual labor it will displace. You know, if you talk to the people that are leading out on this, that and issuing the press releases and creating the hype and the excitement, they would say 95%, right? What I'm seeing out there in the actual practical world right now is closer to about 65, 70%. But that's still an extremely high number. And that's, of course, that's a full AI adoption, AI
So
enabled platforms across the
tell me a
board.
little more about what that number means, that
Yeah,
percentage.
it doesn't mean the level of automation. We've been getting up to 80% automation now.
Yeah.
This is about manual labor displacement at the
Okay.
entry level.
Okay.
So if you look at, and you know this very well, Amy, how an accounting firm is structured, you have the people that are capturing the transactions, and then you have the people who are closing out the month, and then you have the people who are reviewing that work, and then you typically have the person that's client facing that talks with the client every cycle. If you're a smaller firm, you consolidate some of those roles, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's the role at the capture of the information where we're seeing about, on the average, 65 to 70% manual work displacement. Over and above the 80% automation, those manual laborers were already enjoying. So we get this is a
Yeah.
significant increase.
Right.
So your short term, maybe 12 to 24 month is don't stop the growth of your practice, grow through selective, careful outsourcing. Then know that in about 18 to 36 months, you're going to be able to cut back on the number of outsourcing hours that you're using by displacing your outsourcing with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That makes sense. Totally.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of what I was going to get at is, I do have a graphic and I will attach it to this podcast episode where it was just showing how the workplace model is going to change, and the more that you automate, the more that you bring AI in, because AI is just getting so much better. Every day it's getting better, right? That you're going to be able to generate more revenue with even less people. And
That's exactly right. Your profit potential is going to be significantly higher.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the model that you're talking about. I think people should really look deep into that and grasp onto that.
The biggest takeaway from this, Amy, is it's not, if people think I can adopt AI today and solve my staffing problem, yes, that's theoretically true. It's just, it's that you need that bridge. You need that bridge
Okay.
of the humans still involved until you can fully deploy the AI and measure
Yeah.
its impact on manual entry. So I don't want people to treat the AI as either a fear factor, and I don't want them to treat it as a panacea. It
Yeah.
isn't fearful, and we're not yet to the point where it's solving all of our labor problems.
Yes. I agree. Okay, let's talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit about this before, but just, how large firms are handling all of this and the emergence of, different scaled competitors and consolidation happening in the market. So can we dive into that a little bit and just how that landscape is evolving?
Yeah. So scaled competitors used to be a place of deep concern for me. H&R Block advisors or just Block advisors, and Pilot and then Intuit, QuickBooks Live and TurboTax Live, and that's just three of the biggest ones, right?
Yeah.
It's still something to be watched. They are still providing services to some segment of what bookkeepers used to enjoy, without that kind of scaled competition. Tax preparers have been dealing with it forever, with the big franchises, but bookkeepers is kind of new to them, right? So it is still there. Pilot still offers bookkeeping services. Intuit still offers bookkeeping services. H&R Block is now offering bookkeeping services. So don't ignore that category.
Right.
But as recently as last week, Intuit announced that they are going to democratize their platform. I don't know if they use that word, but that's my word, through all of the pro advisors and the people that use the QuickBooks Online Accountant product. They're going to take that QuickBooks Live platform and make it available to the accounting profession. So that's a massive shift from direct competitor to quasi competitor at worst, maybe even ally at best. You kind of see where all of this lands.
Yeah.
I found that extremely encouraging, and I wouldn't be surprised, Amy, if you see companies like Pilot following the same kind of approach. There's so much more opportunity in working with the profession than trying to go head to head and competing with them.
Got it.
That I
Yeah.
think other organizations you're gonna start seeing scaled competitors become scaled assets for the profession.
That's really cool. Yeah. And very interesting insights. And so, I think one thing that we haven't covered yet in quite depth is just talking about the environment, the private equity, the mergers and acquisitions, the silver tsunami.
Yes,
that
the
kind
silver
of effect.
tsunami.
The
I like that term.
tsunami. So can we talk a little bit about what practitioners should be thinking about, how they should be positioning themselves, how can they best prepare for this massive shift change,
Yeah.
so they aren't fearful of it.
Well, that's just another place where the world's strange, right? You've got scaled
Yeah.
competitors now becoming scaled allies potentially. So the strange moves around. Either way, it's going to create strange. And we've got artificial intelligence creating strange. This is just another element where the world is getting stranger and stranger. About 20% rise in mergers and acquisitions. You hear the range 15 to 22%, depending on who's doing the research and whether that research is based on the number of firms acquired as opposed to the amount of revenue or the transaction volume, transaction size of those, the valuation. You'll get this, but it's about 20% increase in M&A just in the last 12 months. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it's accelerating, and it's driven by over $1 trillion of private equity that is being infused over a 5-year window. It started a couple of years ago. It's expected to go on for about 3 more years. And it's also on the rise. It's not like there was a pool of money that they're just spending down. It continues to grow.
It's gonna go up, and then where are we in that bell curve?
That where we at in the bell curve, and I don't think we're at the crest of the bell curve yet, Amy.
No. Okay. Yeah.
I think we're 2 years in. I don't think we're necessarily 40% in. I think we're 35% in. I think we're going to see a massive acceleration. The bell curve's yet to be reached. Now this creates strange because firms that we work with here at Woodard, we consult with the top 200 largest firms in the world. Our client today may be a division of a firm tomorrow, right? We actually had that happen where we we had a consulting engagement with somebody in the top 20, and they were acquired by somebody in the top 10. You know, even the top 20 are not necessarily the biggest fish in the ocean. They're not necessarily the ones at the top of the food chain. They're getting acquired too, and
Wow.
they're it's disrupting the top 10. So the PE and the M&A, those are both two sides of the same strange coin, right? You can't really separate them out. We've had mergers and acquisitions for forever in the profession.
Yeah.
Uh, but at this scale, it's all driven by PE. And if we want to connect the dots, Amy, on,
Yeah.
sort of mapping the strange, all roads lead back to artificial intelligence. The prospect of artificial intelligence on the profession is driving PE dollars. The PE wants to see recurring revenue models. So they want this artificial intelligence. Yeah, they want it to drive tax efficiencies, absolutely. But they want monthly recurring revenue. That's how those investors are thinking. And they don't want the once a year transaction of a tax return or an audit.
Yeah.
So they are driving an increased adoption of client advisory services, bookkeeping plus controllership plus financial planning and advisory and CFO all pulled together creates CAS, client advisory services. They're pushing those into the firms. Then they're driving mergers and acquisitions. And right now it's largely a land grab. They're just grabbing all of the real estate they can, all the good firms that are acquirable, and then they're building these CAS platforms so that they can later consolidate all this monthly recurring revenue. And of course, what does the private equity company want? They want the multiple. So they're looking to see an annual tax return now where you can bill out CAS services at basically the price of a tax return times 12, maybe half the tax returns times 12. You're going to get somewhere 6 to 12x revenue growth. And then they're going to turn around and flip that, sell it to another private equity company, or flip it to another firm, largely probably owned by private equity. And 1/3 of the nation's largest firms have already accepted private equity. It's going to be up to 66% in my best guess in about 3 years. So they're just going to start trading accounting firms between private equity companies and flipping them upward. All of this is creating a strange world, Amy. And if your listeners are in here and you think, well, I'm small, this doesn't affect me. This is all the gods of Mount Olympus and the top 500 size firms throwing lightning bolts at each other. That isn't true. It does affect you because it gives you a tremendous opportunity. Small firms.
Yeah.
If there's over $1 trillion flying around in the room, then you're acquirable too. And if you're of that age where you thought, my retirement plan was just to work myself down until I exhaust myself and then turn the lights off, there's a brighter potential exit for you.
Yeah.
If you're just prepared for it. And we'll be focusing on that at Scaling New Heights too.
Oh,
if you want to exit, this is what you need to know.
Is Scaling New Heights tomorrow? No.
Wouldn't that be great tomorrow for everybody else? It'd be horrible for us.
Okay. No, yeah, right.
But anyway.
Well, that's so exciting, Joe. And I think for the people that are listening, they should be excited too, and not be fearful, not be scared. I mean, it's just, we can't necessarily control it. We have to embrace it. I mean, you have to embrace it, in my opinion, embrace that change. So just kind of wrapping up here, thinking about Scaling New Heights, which is next year, June.
Yes, June of 2026.
Yes,
June.
And at the beautiful Marriott down in Orlando, which is, okay, I might have gone to the pool once, but anyways.
Yeah, it's actually an aquatic center. It's like a water park. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And a light show and anyways. But aside from that, tell our listeners just a little bit about Scaling if they have never been there and what they would expect to get out of it other than just immense energy and education, CPEs, you name it. So, what would you hope that people would walk away from Scaling New Heights with in terms of empowerment, I guess?
Well, and it's funny you should use the hope word because that's what I want them to walk away with. I want them to look fully in the face of this strange thing that's happening, right? And we're going to look at it fully. We have Dr. Susskind coming, who wrote The Future of the Professions, and also he wrote A World Without Work, which is hyperbolic. There will be work, right? But he's just saying work will change, right? Yeah. So he's going to come in, he's going to bring all the data points. We're going to look right in the face of the problem. We're going to have M&A experts who are watching all these PE trends and actually negotiating these transactions between these large firms. They're going to tell us what's happening with all that movement. Cool. So and of course, artificial intelligence experts. So after we look fully in the face of the strange, then we're going to talk about how to respond. Not react, Amy, not ignore, because react and ignore are both the wrong way. Right. How do you respond to what is happening in the space? And if people walk away encouraged and directed, right? I now know how. I've got at least a map here on how I can settle the strange new world. That's the goal of this year's conference. Okay, but that's it. That's how many months? 9 months away. What can they do between now and then? I mean, I know I visited your website and I know that there's different programs, whatever else. Is there, like, if somebody just really wants to get in there now and start figuring this out, like, what can they do? Well, they can join. You know, we have a membership organization. It's at mylastname.com, woodard.com. That's also where you'll find Scaling New Heights. It's under our events area. But if you go to the memberships area of our website, I would encourage anyone who wants to start, figuring this whole thing out right now, to join, and we will help you to map it so that when you hit Scaling New Heights, you're way ahead of the curve. So join today and attend in June. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate. Is there anything else that I should have hit on that you want to share? No. I think we fully covered the strange. Yes. I do too. I do too, Joe. Well, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here, Amy. Thank you.
This has been Edge Unscripted. We appreciate you joining us and hope you enjoyed the conversation. Connect with us by leaving a comment and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.